Au Festival Américain, nous sommes en compagnie de David James Poissant. You wrote a book. The only book published in French now is a short stories, book of short stories. You talk about very different kind of people. Do you know them? Know how they live and evolve in life?
Sure, I think so. So when I grew up, when I was very young, we were poor. My father, he did roofing, and he was a short order cook in a diner. So we didn't have a lot of money, and then we were living in New York. And later, when I was 7, we moved to Atlanta, Georgia, and for him to get new work. So I know people from a lot of different socioeconomic backgrounds, as well as I grew up in the South. I grew up in Georgia, and now I live in Florida. So yeah, I definitely know a lot of the kind of rough Southern American men that I tend to wind up writing about.
And what made you feel like writing about these people? What touches you in their daily life?
I think that what I like to do is I like to find a kind of character who doesn't tend to get a lot of sympathy, and try to find an angle to force the reader to empathize with the character. So for example, the opening story in the collection, Lizard Man, a father, when he learns that his son is gay, he's angry about it and he throws his son out the window. And so when I first started writing that story, I was writing it from the son's point of view, because I have friends who came out in the South in the 90s, and it wasn't as accepted then. And as soon as I started to write that story, I thought that's the easier story to write. It would be much harder to try to write that from the father's point of view, and have the reader still not hate the father for doing this terrible thing. What he does to his son is unforgivable, and yet I wanted the reader to try to find some way, if not to forgive the father, at least to see him as human.
Write this with this particular angle for all your stories. You try to find the different point of view.
I think so. Yeah, I like to tell people that I enjoy writing about bad characters doing good things, and good characters doing bad things. Characters finding themselves in situations where they're offered the chance to be something greater or less than themselves.
And there is something about animals are like a gimmick in all your stories. Why is it a kind of way to put a kind of perspective of the human animality, or is there something?
It didn't start out that way. I didn't realize I was doing it until someone pointed out to me after I'd published a few stories long before I had the book, and they said to me, "Why are you always writing about animals?" And I think it's just because I really love animals. When I was a kid growing up, I was the kid who had all the animals. Like at different points in my life, I had a dog and a cat and a snake and a fish and a rabbit, lizards, mice. I had a frog. I mean, it was just, my house was a zoo. And I still love animals, although now I only have a dog and some fish. But I also like the natural world, and I think there's something really interesting and sad about the way that humans interact with the natural world. I mean, especially in America, especially in Florida where I live now, we just bulldoze down so many trees, to put up new neighborhoods and houses, and then you get bears wandering into neighborhoods, and they've been animals have been displaced by us. We're on it's their home, but we've come in, and now we have to live with them. And so I think I've always been interested in the ways that we interact with the animals we displace.
And how do you build your stories? Which kind of details make you feel like writing? Because you write a lot about quite intimate situations, from the intimacy of the characters. It's not like general. What makes you think about, I would like to write?
I'm usually very haunted by place. So like there's a story in the collection that takes place in San Francisco, and I had been in San Francisco for a week, And when I came back, I found the city beautiful, and then there were parts of it that were ugly, and I just wanted to capture all of that city. So I started with the place even before I had the story. I had a guy fly into San Francisco the way I had flown into San Francisco, and then he's kind of wandering around the city and learning about it. And as he began to see the city the way I had seen the city, I began to sort of discover a story for him. Similarly with Lizard Man, I had wound up in Lee, Florida, driving around what has to be like the pink flamingo capital of America. Everyone had these little pink flamingos in their front yards, and I thought, I've got to set a story here in this town where all these old houses and lots of pine trees, but then everybody's put these what we call lawn ornaments. I don't know if there's an equivalent in France.
Yes, but in France it's awful. We have, we call them the garden dwarves.
Oh, the gnomes.
Yes. Gnomes
Yes.
Put in the garden,
Okay.
Sometimes.
We have those too. But in Florida the flamingos are more popular, the little plastic flamingos. So that's how that story started and it just wound up being one very small image in the whole story, but it started with me wanting to send characters into this house with little pink flamingos in front of it.
So that's why maybe you choose to write short stories, to picture like this a detail and to...
Yeah, I like place. I'm finishing a novel now for Simon & Schuster and for Albin Michel.
Oh, good.
And the novel actually, it began as two of the stories in the collection, the stories about the couple, Richard and Lisa Starling, who lose an infant. And I just wondered, after a couple of years, I wondered whatever happened to those characters. And so I just started writing. I picked it up 30 years later and imagined that they did wind up having two sons after they lost their daughter. And then it became sort of an exploration of where are they now and what had the last 30 years been like. So yeah, sometimes characters, I just get stuck on a certain character and then I want to know what their whole life story might have been.
So you're living in Florida, you grew up in Georgia. Would you consider yourself as a Southern writer with this image like Flannery O'Connor and Faulkner, the Southern Gothic? Is it a modern Southern Gothic that you write?
Yes, I think with Flannery O'Connor, especially, her work means a lot to me. She lived in Milledgeville, Georgia. My parents have a lake house on the lake right by Milledgeville, Lake Oconee in South Georgia. So I spent a lot of time there. I've seen her house in Andalusia in South Georgia. Yeah. And also her work was haunted by faith because of her interest in Catholicism. I was raised Southern Baptist. I'm not Baptist anymore. But I'm very interested in ideas of God and spirituality. And those pop up a lot in the stories and in the novel as well. That sort of tension between wanting to believe in a God and also seeing how horrible things in the world can be, and then trying to reconcile how God can be love, but also the world can be evil.
Your topics and your characters, the way they live, and for you, do they reflect a certain aspect of the American reality? This kind of double. Good people doing bad things, bad people doing good things, being quite lost in their personal life, their dreams, and
yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't even know how to characterize the American experience, but it is a weird life because a lot of people tell you, oh, in America you can be anything. That's not really true. I mean, for most of us, there's a lot of luck involved. No matter how hard you work. There are situations that can't always be overcome. I mean, the economic disparity is so great. I went to public school and I'm okay, but I mean, I went to a good public. My parents were able to live in a neighborhood to put me in a good school. But we don't treat everyone equally. I mean, there are schools in America that are dangerous, that have no money, that where you don't get a good education. And if you don't get a good education, it's harder to move up in the world and to be whatever you want to be. So that kind of American bootstrap mentality is, I think, kind of a myth for most people. But at the same time, everyone wants to believe it. We all want to believe, oh, I might be the next president.
And what are you reading at the moment? Do you have a book to recommend?
Yeah, I'm reading a book of essays, Pulphead, by John Jeremiah Sullivan, who's here at the festival. It's a really wonderful collection of essays. What else? Sam Lipsyte's The Fun Parts. I love his stories. I've been a fan of his stories since his first collection. And recently I read for the first time, I read Colson Whitehead's The Intuitionist, which is it's a novel about race and class in America in this kind of imaginary future, and it deals with elevator inspectors. Weirdly enough, the heroine is someone who inspects elevators, but she doesn't do the job properly. Like, she doesn't go and check all the things in the elevator the way she's supposed to. She just intuits it. Like, she can kind of like sense. She like communes with the elevator and just knows if there's something wrong. It's a wild novel. He has a new book out now, which I haven't read yet. It's called The Underground Railroad, and it's just blowing up. It's like the bestseller right now in America. So it seems great that he's finally getting some attention. Yeah, so hopefully it'll come here next.